All right, good morning, you guys. This is your sales trainer, Maria, with a special Christmas time edition of our Technical Friday Zoom. Today, we're going to talk a little more about the introduction, how to connect with your prospects quickly and build their need, as opposed to just building some kind of a general need for, just anybody, okay? So one thing that's really important, you guys, is giving a story in order to get a story. Because one of the big keys of what we do at Family Heritage to start building the need and connecting with people is asking them who's the closest person to you who's gone through any of this stuff, cancer, heart attacks. But guys, why do you think it's important to ask that? Why do you think we do that instead of just jumping right into our demo? What do you guys think? You guys can unmute yourselves and
Got to build rapport with a client or prospect, get a basis of understanding between each other.
yeah, building rapport is super important. And why do you think that's kind of like one of our non-negotiable questions, to specifically ask them who's the closest person to you that's gone through something? Because that could be a little uncomfortable, could make them sad. But why do you think we still want to ask that?
It makes it personal.
Mhm.
Makes it personal, right? What else was someone going to say?
Puts in
Sales
their
is
mind it could happen to them.
okay.
What were you going to say, Katie?
Sales is a transfer of emotion.
Sales is a transfer of emotion, and we're making it real for them. We're helping them understand this could happen to them. Because by bringing them back to the closest person to them that's been through cancer, heart attack, or an accident, we're subconsciously telling them, go back to how you felt when that happened. And understand that this is real. It already happened to someone close to you or you already. And it could happen again to you or to somebody else close to you. And you want to ask for each. Who do you know who's been through cancer? Get a story. Try and get a story for heart and stroke. That's typically runs in people's families. I don't know anyone who doesn't have high blood pressure, right? Who's the closest person to you that's been through anything like heart issues? And then accidents. Car accidents are the biggest thing out here. It seems like everybody's either broken a bone or been to the ER for something. But what's the worst injury you've ever been through? Because you want to get multiple stories, because that opens up your potential to sell multiple policies and get them protected on all fronts. Just because someone has a really good cancer story, that doesn't mean they necessarily think that cancer is their biggest concern. I've demoed tons of people who have a crazy heart story, like, their grandpa or their dad had a heart attack, and then they're mostly concerned with accidents. You just don't want to assume. So get 3 stories and still ask them, what I do is going to make a lot of sense for you, just so I can give you the quick idea of how this works. Out of these 3, cancer, heart attacks, and accidents, which one would concern you the most? Let them choose. Then we get to the stats pages. Now, those are the first 2 pages, no matter which policy you're going through. And, they can be boring if you're just reading off the page. But the reason we do this is to essentially quantify the prospect's risk. Because, guys, obviously everybody could potentially get cancer. But that doesn't matter if they don't think it's possible for them to get cancer. How many times have you demoed someone? They're like, well, I'm pretty healthy. I don't plan on getting cancer. I don't plan on having any accidents. I'm pretty safe. Well, sure, no one's planning on any of this, right? But it still happens. In fact, 3 out of 4 families will deal with cancer. Heart attacks and strokes happen every 40 seconds. Think of how many people have had heart attacks since we started this Zoom call. There's over 5,000 disabling injuries every hour. That's insane. That it could totally happen to you, right? Sharing some of these stats and bringing it to life for them just kind of helps people understand, like, this is possible. It could happen. And hopefully they'll take you seriously for the next, however many minutes as you continue to build the need for them. But a good rule of thumb, guys, the whole time you're doing the intro and building the need, you want to ask at least 1 question per page. So every page of stats, there's 2 of them. Make sure you're asking at least one question. Does that surprise you? Why or why not does that surprise you? And then when you get to the second page, it's like all the different risk factors, whether it's, the cancer, the heart, the accident page. A good question to ask on the cancer page is, why do you think there's so much cancer these days? On the heart policy on the second page, you might say, which of these risk factors have applied to you? Who do you know does anyone in your family have diabetes? Anyone have high blood pressure, high cholesterol, use tobacco, any of that stuff? Then on the accident on the second page, you could say something like, what are some of the things? There's work, home, slips and falls. Guys, this time of year, slips and falls can happen to anybody. If your steps are a little icy while you're leaving the house, maybe you're running a little late, you're rushing, kids playing sports if they have kids. And this is a great part to start getting to know your client on the second page of your demo. Do they have kids? Do they have family history of some of these things? Are their kids active? Are they playing sports? Are they running all over the place? Have they ever been to the ER for accidents before? It doesn't have to take terribly long, that you're just sort of starting to build rapport. And this is not really the meat and potatoes of building the need. This is more like the appetizer, just kind of getting people interested and understanding like, this is real. This is a real thing. Then, of course, when we get to the iceberg page, that is the most important page. Why is that the most important page, you guys? Somebody tell me what you think.
I mean, that explains what we do, what we're here to protect.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. It sums it right up. It says exactly what we're doing and, equally importantly, what we're not doing. So there's two types of costs that go along with anything serious health-wise: cancer, heart, accidents, whichever one we're talking about, or all three if we're trying to talk about all three at once. Most people are familiar with the direct costs. Everybody who's ever been to the doctor before has seen a medical bill. They know that health insurance kind of pays for that stuff. And, we have great health insurance, right? Yep. Okay, great. What do you have? Cool. Blue Cross Blue Shield. I'm so glad you have them. They're awesome. We have nothing to do with that. That's what we don't do. You have that already. You need that. What we do is help out with this bottom part of the iceberg. As you can see, it's kind of a lot bigger. And those are your indirect costs. And that's what your health insurance doesn't cover. So if your health insurance doesn't cover it, who does cover it? Yeah, exactly. You do, right? Now, when I say indirect costs, do you know what I mean by that? And get them to kind of think about it a little bit, right? And no matter what they say, you guys, if they say, yes, I know what indirect costs are, and they give you a correct answer, or yes, I know what indirect costs are, and they give you an incorrect answer, or if they say, no, I don't know what indirect costs, why don't you tell me? No matter what they say, you always answer with critical question 1. And that's good for you to know, because now you don't have to overthink. What do I say? If they say this, always say critical question 1. That is your answer, no matter what they say. So in your situation, if you were sick or hurt and couldn't work for 6 weeks, 6 months, or even longer, how would that affect you financially? And guys, that can be a little awkward to ask people, right? People don't want to think about if they got sick or hurt in work. And they definitely don't want to admit that it might be a little tough for them sometimes, right? But that's okay. You need to ask confidently. It's not a big deal to ask people that. You'd rather ask those uncomfortable questions now instead of skip over it and them not get protected and then them be really uncomfortable later when they're going through something major and don't have the funds to cover it, right? So building the need is sometimes referred to as CPR, and that stands for cut, pour, resuscitate. So it sounds really cutthroat. It's essentially CPR stands for, cutting open a wound, pouring salt on it, and then resuscitate or remedy. So when we build the need, we need to create kind of some discomfort or some pain, because if you're not uncomfortable, if your prospect's not uncomfortable, why would they make a change? If they're totally cool with all of their insurance coverage and their backup plans, why would they buy another thing? Guys, the only reason people buy from us is if they're uncomfortable with their current situation and they know that they need to make kind of a change. So it's really important that we ask those questions, because maybe they hadn't thought of it before. Maybe they didn't know they're uncomfortable with their current situation because they haven't had to think about it yet. So you need to get comfortable asking those uncomfortable questions. Now, what we're hoping they're going to say is, I'd be devastated. That would turn my life upside down. That would be really tough, right? But what about if they say, oh, I'd be fine. That wouldn't affect me. I'd be okay. What do you do then? That's happened sometimes for sure, right? So what you don't want to do is just say, okay, well, anyway, indirect costs, like don't skip over it. Like take a second and dig in there. What do you mean by that? Why do you say you'd be okay? Oh, I have savings. I have, money in the bank. I've got investments. My spouse takes care of all of our bills. Find out why they think they'd be okay. And chances are, guys, any answer they give you as to why they'd be okay can be refuted 2 pages later on the page that says there's several ways people try and meet these indirect costs. See, everything people are going to say for why they'd be okay is either going to be savings or assets, investments, college funds, retirements, home, property, cars, personal items. Everything people say is going to be one of those categories. So you don't have to skip ahead in your demo. Just kind of ask them, why do you say that? And see what they say. Now, this could change a little for business owners, older people, younger people. Not everybody's need is the same. And not everybody's indirect costs are going to be the same either. So really, guys, we're digging in on this iceberg page and the indirect cost page. Remember, guys, your intro should be longer than your benefits. The intro is the longest part of the cycle of the sale. This is what sale is made in building the need. This is super, super important. Don't be afraid to spend some time here. So for a business owner, think about their business structure and their day-to-day life. So if they own the business, they're not employee. They essentially they're probably on the payroll from the business, and the business pays them, every month or every 2 weeks, whatever they've got set up. And they're going to still probably make money either way, whether the business is running or the business is not running. But guys, if you're talking to a business owner at work and he's not at some island somewhere on the beach, that means he's probably pretty important to the day-to-day running of the business. So logically, you can extrapolate that if he wasn't there, the business might run at a lower level. It might not run as smoothly. If he's there, he's probably pretty important. And therefore, if he got sick or hurt and couldn't work for a year, probably have to hire somebody to replace him. That's an additional, you might even have to hire multiple people because owners typically wear a lot of hats. So bring that up, How would it affect your business if you were out of here for a year going through something major? Right? Day-to-day operations would probably change. It just probably be as productive, right? I mean, you're pretty important. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here, right? It's your business. You want to be involved in the day-to-day. And if they have a family, don't forget that part too. How would this impact your business or more importantly, your family? If they're a successful business owner and they kind of have, maybe a higher standard of living for themselves, that just means they have higher bills. Right? Guys, just because you perceive someone makes a lot of money, that doesn't mean they save a lot of money. Typically, most people are living paycheck to paycheck. It's just some people have big paychecks, right? So don't assume that just because somebody owns a company that they are just, have an infinite backup plan. They could still probably, most definitely, be affected by something like cancer. Cancer can cost millions of dollars. If you've got an 80-20 health insurance plan, 20% of $1 million is still a good chunk that you're paying, depending on what your max out of pocket is. So if it's a business owner, those are some things to consider. If it's an older person, they might be the older person, I'm talking like close to retirement age, like around 65, when they can probably start to get on Medicare. They might say on the iceberg page, oh, it wouldn't affect me at all. I've got Medicare. Medicare pays for everything. I've got all the Medicare supplements. My health insurance is the best in the country. In that case, I am so glad you have that. Medicare is great health insurance. That is some of the best insurance you can get for sure. And that is going to totally, hopefully, cover the top part of the iceberg. Guys, Medicare is just health insurance. It only covers that top part of the iceberg. And if folks are maybe a little older and they're on Social Security, that's a fixed income. So think about on the indirect cost page, those arrows up and down. So on a good day, most people, their income's up here and their bills are down here, a little, cushion, they're saving money. And when something like cancer happens, income either stays the same or goes down, but expenses always rise. Now, if you're on a fixed income, your income's not going down, it's staying right there. Your expenses are still going up. Because even if you're retired and on a fixed income, that is going to kind of account for like your normal expenses, your groceries, your utilities, whatever bills you normally have to pay. If you're going through cancer, you're maybe driving to a cancer center, you have your specialty copays, you might have, deductibles to meet for Medicare. You guys know what the indirect costs, there are all kinds of stuff that you wouldn't have had to pay for before. And a fixed income, can't you see how that might start to fall short after not too? Then you have a younger person. A younger person might say, oh, I'd be totally fine. My bills are really low. I don't got kids. I don't have hardly any bills, I'm good. I just got my cell phone, rent, it's no big deal, And then especially if like their parents are helping pay for stuff, that could definitely be an excuse depending on how young they are, right? Now for younger people, we kind of want to paint the picture. You're young, you're healthy right now. And we're not talking about prices yet, but guys, think about this in your head. It's going to be cheaper now. If they're under 30, these policies are cheaper than they've ever been. If they're 25, they're going to get their money back when they're 50. 50 is still relatively young in the grand scheme of things. They'll have just saved 25 years worth of premium, gotten it refunded in a big check, and they're still covered paying the 25-year-old prices as they're 50 plus and at more risk of developing cancer or heart attack or actually getting really hurt if they did have an accident, right? So for young people, you can almost look at it as a long-term savings account of some kind, especially if younger folks are living a little more paycheck to paycheck and struggle to budget. This can be a great way to kind of have an out of sight, out of mind savings plan for them. Now, we're not supposed to actually call this a savings plan, but if they say it's kind of like a savings plan, then that's totally fine. They're allowed to say that. But I'm just giving you guys some ideas of how different people could, perceive that it wouldn't affect them if they got sick or hurt in work. But in all reality, guys, almost everybody would be affected. Indirect cost page. Now you have a whole list of almost every single indirect cost that you can think of. If you remember only one thing from everything I'm teaching you today is ask, don't tell. Don't just tell people, oh, you probably have a mortgage and car payment and kids and daycare and you'd have to pay for lodging. No. Not everybody has kids in daycare. Not everybody has a mortgage. Ask, don't tell. If you're talking to an older person and you say kids in daycare and a mortgage and a car payment, they just stopped listening because they paid their house off 20 years ago and they drive a really old car that's totally paid for, or they've got enough cash to buy a brand new car and their kids are grown and they have grandkids, right? If you're talking to a really young person and they just got their first apartment and they don't have any kids yet and they're paying rent, they're like, okay, you don't know what you're talking about, right? Ask, don't tell. Do you have a car payment? Do you have a mortgage, rent, like folks? And then everybody's probably got some kind of like groceries, utilities, things like that. Now with your Blue Cross Blue Shield, you have a deductible. Do you know what the deductible is? Right? Yeah, even if you got great health insurance, you still have some copays, deductibles if you actually have to use it. It's just expensive using your health insurance these days. And then out-of-pocket expenses. When I say travel, I'm not talking about the fun kind of travel. Sometimes you'll see people point to that, they're like, well, I don't really travel that much. It's like, no, I'm not talking about going on vacation. I'm talking about driving 3 hours 3 times a week to go get chemotherapy. Not the fun kind of travel. You would have that kind of travel if, God forbid, you were going through something like this. Now, do you have kids? How old are they? Would they need someone taking care of them if you were out of the picture for 6 months to a year? Are they in college? Because if your kids are in college, you're still probably supporting them financially to some extent. This just might look a little different than if they're 5, Ask, don't tell. which of these indirect costs would affect you the most in your family, in your situation? Because guys, building their need, not a general need. Okay. And then critical question 2. So as of today, other than using your savings, do you have a backup plan that would take care of all of this? If someone shaking your head. Because guys, other than savings, and we probably just covered their objection. What did they say earlier? What was their backup plan that they'd be okay? Savings, investments. Other than that thing you said, do you have a backup plan? No. No, you don't. Because you might have something. And then we go to the next page, the different ways people meet. You might have something like savings, retirement, just pretty much read what's on the page there. Those aren't great options. Most people tell me they've worked their whole life to save up for what they have. If you're talking to an older person, they probably have been working their whole life to save up for retirement. And guys, they don't want to use their entire 401k to pay for cancer. They don't want to cash in on their annuity to pay for cancer. They don't want to sell their home that they've lived in since the 1960s to pay for cancer, right? That's why everyone's getting this. If you're talking to a younger person, they probably don't even have anything to sell. They don't own a home. They don't own their car. They probably don't have a whole bunch of savings in the bank. And if it's a business owner, they don't want to lose their business. They don't want their family's quality of life to suffer just because they got sick, and that's totally out of their control. So just kind of keep in mind who you're talking to. And I'm not saying change the sales talk, but just remember what they said. At this point, hopefully you guys know the sales talk well enough that you know what you have to say, and you're not just thinking about what to say next. And you can actually listen to what they say, because every prospect's going to be a little bit different. It's not going to all be just super cookie cutter, exactly the same. And then, ways to meet Cancer Care Plus page, you pretty much just read those off the page, nothing too crazy there. And then you read a testimonial. And I haven't asked you guys a question in a few minutes. Why do you guys think it's important to read a testimonial? Why do we do this?
Because they believe 50% of what others say and 75-ish% of what others say.
Precisely. Yeah, you're the salesperson. Obviously, you think I should buy this because you make money if I buy this. I'm not going to listen to you. But this random person who doesn't make any money if I buy something, they said this helped. Okay. And if you pick a good testimonial as the agent, maybe if you're talking to a retired person or someone on Medicare, you read them a testimonial of someone who retired or Medicare. If you're demoing person, you read a testimonial like Sarah Blaylock. She was like, I was only 27 when this happened. Or if you're talking to a business owner, read a business owner testimonial. And eventually, guys, hopefully you understand where your testimonials are and you know which one's which, so you can kind of get quick at picking up the one that would make sense for this situation. Because if you read them a testimonial that sounds kind of like them, they're putting themselves in that situation. They're imagining, oh, I'm on Medicare and I have all the Medicare supplements too. Okay, this person, and they used it and they thought it made sense. Oh, interesting. And now they're opening up their mind a little bit because they believe that third party a lot more than they believe you as the salesperson. But be prepared with this, you guys. It can be a momentum killer if you're searching for your testimonials for 20 times and just kind of standing there like, okay, what are you doing? And then their mind starts to wander and they're like, oh, I should probably get back to work. There's 4 different places you can have testimonials. 2 of them are in the sales app, and 2 of them are external to the sales app. Who can tell me where the 4 places are you can find testimonials? If you've done demos before, what kind of testimonials do you use?
Rachel Connect.
Yes, none of you read testimonials. Huh? What'd you say? Someone said something, I didn't hear you. Say it again.
There's 2 testimonials on the one page, and then I know there's
right
only,
there on the screen. Yeah, those 2. Those are some great ones. They're right there. If you are just not quite iPad savvy yet, there's some right there on that page. You can just tap on their face and it's right there. No big deal. That's the easiest place to get testimonials. The second place is if you click those little bubbles up on the top left of your screen. Now you need to go into settings before you do that and actually download some testimonials, but they're there. And then that's a way where you don't have to go to your Photos app. It's right there on your iPad. Then of course, the third way is your Photos app. So if you have some testimonials that have been shared on Vox and you're like, that's a really good one, I want to use that one, save it to your photo albums app, like make a certain album where it's like just client testimonials, and have that ready to go before you walk into your business. Just have that up all day, and you can just quickly, double tap the home button or swipe up and tap on your Photos app and just be right there. And then the fourth way you can share testimonials is on paper. If you don't want to even mess with switching apps or pressing any buttons, you can print out your testimonials and share those. Just make sure you are organized in some way where you know which testimonial is which, and you can just grab it and show it to somebody. All right, so there's 4 different places you can get testimonials. It does take a little bit of organization before you are in the demo to just kind of know where they are and which is which. Okay. But reading a testimonial is super, super important. Don't skip it. And also, guys, if you're reading a testimonial, don't paraphrase it. It is a direct quote. So don't just say, oh, this person says she appreciates the coverage she has with Family Heritage. Just read it word for word. Okay. And then it's a good idea after you read a testimonial to say some kind of question, right? Like, can you see how that would really help if you were in that situation? Something simple like that. And then finally, we get to our 3 check marks page. And this is the last page of building the need right before our buying atmosphere and our benefits. So the point of the 3 check marks page, it builds company credibility and trust. It's simple, affordable, and it's an easy decision. And here's our report card. We have an A+ superior with Better Business Bureau and an A+ with AM Best, our financial credit score. And Globe Life, we've been in business since 1900. We sponsor the Texas Rangers, the Dallas Cowboys. Love them or hate them. Everyone knows who the Cowboys are. The Atlanta Braves, business since 1900. We're not going anywhere, right? This is a reliable company. You shouldn't be afraid to work with us, right? And then you do want to say, and that was the long part. The policy itself is just a couple pages. Give them an idea of how much longer you're going to be taking up their time, because like I said, the intro should be longer than the benefits. And so you should give them an idea. It's just going to be a couple more minutes, right? We're trying to pique their interest to see to the end. It's simple, affordable, and it's an easy decision because you get your money back. Your money back. This might be the first time they've heard of that. How does that work? Well, I'll show you in just a minute here. Stick around till the end. And this is your cue to do your buying atmosphere, guys. If you've been struggling with where does my buying atmosphere go? How do I remember to do it? It says it right there on the 3 check marks page. The hardest part of my job matching families, if you like it, let's get you enrolled. If not, just say no. Now that's not your buying atmosphere, but it is similar to your buying atmosphere. That's just kind of your reminder to make sure you say your buying atmosphere. And we will cover the buying atmosphere and that's in a future lesson, but that is what I have for you guys today on building the need, connecting with people, building their need as opposed to a general need. So that is what I have for you guys today.